once again we happily meet. And today is July 14th, 2015, and this will be disc number 8. Well, I've sold Phillips 66. Billboards all over. 10 states. 150. I was starting to feel pretty good about things, but what offset that was I was in Salt Lake City. And basically I started off with only one person knowing me, and that was Charles Welch Taggart. I've told that story. I could have gone on and on about Charlie. He was so dear to me. He was one of a kind in so many aspects. But I became filled with ambition. And ambition is a very dangerous thing, because ambition can be so all-consuming, and it becomes about you, and rather than about others. And there must be balance somehow in life. But my ambition was, and I characterize my signs as Snarr spectaculars. Well, I wanted a Snarr spectacular in every state. And I could see how I could do this. And I figured I could do it within a 5-year span. And anyway, that was my goal. So I started the process of hiring salesmen, expanding, and more and more sales came in. I just felt like that, gosh, Doug, you can just do no wrong. Everything that you set your mind to do, you're able to do. Even though they be difficult and challenging and overwhelming, you're able to pull it off. And that, again, that can be a very dangerous thing. Well, I've always relied upon poetry to help balance me out in life. And this was about the time that I figured that I needed some poetry. And I believed that of all the poems that I had read, the poem that intrigued me the most in the context of human behavior was written by Rudyard Kipling. And it's the classic poem, If. Now, the background of If, as a senior in high school, I was stopped in the hallway by the drama teacher, Mr. Richardson. And he asked me that the next semester, or 2 semesters, that he wanted me to enroll in his class. He said, I believe I can help you overcome stuttering if you'll enroll in my class. And I thought that was wonderful. What have I got to lose? I wanted that more than anything, to overcome somehow, to deal with this impediment, stuttering in a positive manner. I wanted to get rid of it in all aspects, actually. So I enrolled. Well, he gave all of the kids an assignment, but my assignment was to memorize the poem If. And then he wanted me to quote that poem after, of course, I'd memorized it. He gave me plenty of time to memorize it. And each kid had a memorization of some kind, some prose, some poetry, whatever. Well, came my turn, and I couldn't do it. It just didn't come out. And I had to sit down defeated. Well, that added to the reduction of my faith in myself to deal with this impediment. Not substantially, but still significantly. Now, the poem has stayed with me all my life. At the end of the class, the end of the day, he had me come back, just one-on-one, and I quoted it to him. Did I do it perfectly? No. But I did it significantly better than I thought I could. And somehow there was this enigma of you've got the confidence that you can, but when the moment arrives, you freeze. And I think that's true in sports and all kinds of areas. That when that moment comes where you've got to deliver, you freeze. Well, I froze in the quotation of that poem. So now I was, 17? And today I'll be 81 in a month. And it goes like this. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on to you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting or being lied about, don't deal in lies or being hated. Don't give way to hating. And yet, don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph, and disaster, and treat those two impostors just the same, or bear to hear the truths you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to, broken, and stoop, and build 'em up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose, and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and strength to serve you long after they are gone, and so hold on when there's nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch. If neither foes nor friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, why, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Well, years later, I wondered, where did that poem come from? How come Kipling wrote that poem? What was his motivation? And the reason I wanted to know was because years later, I had pretty much faced every one of those lines. Now that was yet to come in my life. After all this success, I was going to be put to the real test. And it wasn't going to be easy, nor pleasant, but yet it was going to be perhaps the crowning moments of my life, was what was lying ahead. Kipling found himself in the, let's say, the study or the den or the drawing room, whatever you want to call it. It's a huge, colossal room. All walls were just covered with books with 12-foot ceilings. Of Doubleday, the publisher of all of his American works, was Mr. Doubleday. And in some cases, also throughout the whole United Kingdom, as well as the British Empire. So this was a pretty important meeting for Kipling. And he'd meet with him periodically. And during this meeting, in came this little kid. And trailing right behind him were the maids to take care of him. And he was all dressed all properly, and he had a little shirt, and he had a little tie. He was probably right around the age of 10. And Kipling looked at that little kid, the only son of Doubleday. And he saw that this little kid was spoiled rotten, with a silver spoon in his mouth. He'd never go through life or ever know a moment to be without. Everything would be at his command and at his wish. And he asked himself this question: what would it take for that little kid to grow up and face the realities of life? What are those realities of life? And that gave birth to Kipling taking the time, and I think inspired so, to compose the poem, If. And that's where it came from. Well, the little kid grew up. He didn't have any interest in books, nor the business Doubleday. It was too much of a worry, a hassle for him. He didn't like the work, the responsibility. So he sold the business. He took the money And where his heart was and where his interest was baseball. And he bought the New York Mets. And before he died, they had won one World Series, which in itself is quite an achievement in baseball. He died an alcoholic, a great consumer of alcohol nearly every night, drank himself to sleep. And so it is. Well, I was going to face all kinds of vicissitudes of life, and I draw back upon this poem to this very day. And I've already quoted to you a few lines, 4 lines, in an early segment.